The roar of jet engines thundered across the sky. A squadron of fighter pilots, sharp, disciplined, and untouchable, suddenly broke formation mid-flight. Their radios crackled as one word spread among them. A call sign, a name that no one expected to hear again. And when they landed, every pilot stepped out, stood tall and saluted. Not to a commander, not to a decorated ace, but to a woman once dismissed as a nobody. Why did her call sign command the respect of an entire jet squadron? She wasn't born into a military family. She didn't have the kind of connections that open doors to elite flight schools. In fact, for most of her early life, she was just another face in the crowd. Quiet, unremarkable, and often underestimated. People around her saw her as someone who lacked the sharpness, the edge, the spark that great pilots seem to be born with. But behind the silence was a mind that noticed details others missed. While her classmates rushed to boast about speed, she was studying angles, wind patterns, and flight mechanics. Where others sought glory, she sought precision. Her notebooks were filled with sketches of wings, calculations of drag, and handwritten notes about how a jet felt when banking too hard or stalling at altitude. Nobody cared to look at those notes back then. When she entered training, the doubts only grew louder. She wasn't the fastest runner, nor the loudest in the briefing room. In a world of egos and bravado, she seemed out of place. Some of the instructors questioned whether she'd even last the first year. "She's just not cut out for this," one whispered during a break. But then came the simulator tests. Unlike the others who tried to dominate with speed, she navigated like she was reading a hidden map. She anticipated problems before they appeared, executed maneuvers with eerie calm, and landed flawlessly when others spiraled out. The instructors couldn't ignore it. Quietly, she began to earn a reputation. Not as the loudest, not as the strongest, but as the one who stayed steady under pressure. Still, the pilots around her didn't take her seriously. To them, she was still nobody. A name they'd forget on the roster, a presence they overlooked in the mess hall. Even when she earned her wings, few bothered to remember her. What they didn't realize was that every hour she spent in the air was shaping something bigger than herself. Her instincts, her discipline, and her unshakable calm were preparing her for a moment that would one day force even the most hardened jet squadron to stop mid-flight and salute. And it all started with a single word. Her call sign. Call signs aren't chosen at random. They're earned. Sometimes they come from a mistake, sometimes from a personality quirk. But the ones that stick, the ones that become legend, are forged in fire. Hers came during a mission no one expected her to survive. It was supposed to be a routine training flight. The sky was clear, the objective simple. Navigate through a simulated hostile zone, practice evasive maneuvers, and return to base. For most pilots, it was just another exercise. But that day, everything went wrong. Halfway through the run, her squadron encountered a sudden systems failure. One by one, jets began experiencing cascading malfunctions. Radios cutting out, navigation flickering, control sluggish. What should have been an easy drill turned into chaos. Pilots panicked, shouting partial instructions through static-filled channels. Several nearly collided. Amid the storm of confusion, her voice came over the comms. Calm, sharp, unshaken. "Wingman, roll left. Break formation. Trust my vector." Some hesitated. Who was she to be giving orders? She wasn't the squadron leader. She wasn't even the most experienced in the air. But her directions were precise, timed down to the second, guiding each pilot away from disaster. While others fought their jets, she read the sky as if it were an open book. One maneuver stood out. With systems nearly blind, she executed a split-second roll through heavy crosswinds that no one else dared attempt. Against all odds, it worked. Her jet stabilized, and her squadron followed. By the time they limped back to base, shaken but alive, every pilot knew one thing. Without her, at least 2 aircraft would have gone down. When they hit the ground, the usual laughter and banter were gone. Instead, the squadron gathered, waiting. Someone finally broke the silence. She flew like a ghost. No panic, no hesitation. Like she wasn't even touched by the storm. And that was it. Her call sign was born. Phantom. First, she hated it. She never wanted attention, never sought to stand out. But the name spread, whispered at first, then spoken with respect. Every squadron has legends, pilots who did the impossible, and now, Phantom was one of them. What she didn't know was that this moment, this unassuming call sign, would follow her for years. Long after she left the cockpit, long after she faded from the rosters, the name Phantom lived on. And one day, when a jet squadron thousands of miles away heard it spoken again, they would freeze mid-flight. Years passed. She had moved on from active duty, her name fading quietly from official rosters. To most, she was forgotten, just another pilot who'd served her time and disappeared into civilian life. But her call sign never died. Phantom lived in hangars, in late-night stories told by rookies, in whispered training lessons about calm under fire. On the morning it happened, she wasn't even supposed to be there. She was attending a base ceremony, a quiet guest standing among civilians, wearing nothing more than a plain jacket. The crowd gathered to watch an air display, an elite jet squadron demonstrating precision flying. The engines roared overhead, thundering in perfect formation. Spectators craned their necks, awed by the speed and control. But something went wrong. One jet wavered out of position, just slightly. The announcer covered it up, calling it a maneuver. But any trained eye knew the formation was seconds away from unraveling. Without thinking, she stepped forward. She didn't have a radio. She didn't have authority. All she had was instinct. And then someone nearby, an old pilot who remembered, called out her name. Not her real name, her call sign. Phantom. The word cut through the air like a signal flare. Heads turned. A young pilot overheard it through his earpiece as ground chatter relayed the moment. The squadron heard it too. And then it happened. Up in the sky, the jets corrected in perfect sync. Not because of a command from the control tower, not because of training drills, but because that single word carried weight. Phantom wasn't just a call sign. It was a legacy. Every pilot in the formation knew the story, had heard the legend of the ghost who guided her squadron through a failing sky. When the jets landed, the base fell silent. Engines powered down, canopies opened, and one by one, the pilots climbed out. Instead of heading to debrief, they walked toward her. Not hurried, not confused, but deliberate. They lined up, boots hitting the tarmac in unison. And then every single one of them snapped to attention and saluted. The crowd didn't understand. To them, she was just another civilian. But to those pilots, she was Phantom. The ghost who saved lives. The pilot who proved that calm could outfly chaos. The nobody who had become a legend. She didn't ask for recognition. She never sought the spotlight. But in that moment, standing there as the jet squadron honored her, she realized something. You don't choose to be a legend. Sometimes your actions choose for you.